Have you ever noticed how one disappointing result can make you question far more than the result itself? When a proposal is rejected, or someone else is chosen for a position that you thought you had earned, when a work that you've been building for a long time does not get a response that you had hoped for, at first there is disappointment with what happened, but very quickly that result can begin to alter everything around it. You may begin questioning the choices that you have made. You may begin questioning the direction of your life, your judgments, and eventually you may even begin questioning the kind of person that you believe yourself to be. In today's teaching, I want to explore why a disappointing result can gather so much authority and what becomes possible when we no longer require the next success to restore our place within life. I want to begin with a woman I will call Michelle. Michelle worked in a spice shop in Melbourne for 3 years. She knew the products well. Customers trusted her, and they even returned to speak with her. Sales were growing. Her managers seemed to respect her judgments. And when an in-store manager's position became available, Michelle thought at least she would be seriously considered for this position. Instead, the position was given to somebody else from outside the shop. And what made the situation more difficult for her was Michelle was expected to help train this new manager while remaining in the same role for the same pay. At first, this seemed to present some practical questions. Should she speak to her employers? Should she remain in the role? Should she begin looking elsewhere? But it did not remain practical for long. She began questioning the meaning of the past 3 years. She began questioning whether she misunderstood the respect that she thought she had earned. Had her work been valued at all? Was she too naive to imagine her commitment would eventually be recognized? Michelle had not only been denied a promotion, the decision also made her question or reinterpret everything that came before it. This is how an event becomes a verdict. Something happens in the world, a proposal is rejected, someone else is chosen, a mistake is made, a relationship changes. There is the event. Then there is what we feel in response to it. And then there is what we make the event begin to mean about who I am. A missed opportunity, an opportunity that did not work, may become, perhaps, I misjudged the situation. Then it may become, perhaps, I lost my direction. Eventually, perhaps, I may be the kind of person for whom things do not work. An outcome has been treated not as just an information about the situation, but it has been given the authority to define or reinterpret our past, our future, and also define the person experiencing it or receiving it. Witnessing begins by restoring the distinctions that have collapsed. What actually occurred? What am I feeling in response to it? And what am I now making this occurrence mean about the person I am or who I am? This does not mean we dismiss the result. Michelle may genuinely be undervalued. Her employer's decision may actually mean that there is very limited opportunity for her to progress. She may require to speak up, change, or leave. An outcome can ask for a response without becoming a verdict about the whole person. Once the result becomes a verdict about the self, the urge to reverse that becomes much more immediate. We may recognize this after sending a message in anger. As soon as the message is received, we may feel, oh, we went a bit too far. Before we have fully felt what happened, the mind already starts rushing ahead. How can I apologize? How can I explain myself? How can I make this right? An apology may be necessary. The harm may need to be repaired. But an appropriate action can arise from different impulses. I apologize because I genuinely recognize the effect of what I have done and I want to take responsibility. Or I apologize because I cannot bear what my action may seem to say about me. The question is not only what should I do next? The deeper question is what is organizing this action? Am I responding to the information that the situation has given me? Or am I making the discomfort disappear by producing a result that restores the person I believe myself to be? Michelle may leave the shop or choose to remain, or even speak with her employees. Any of these actions could be appropriate. But leaving because she has genuinely recognized the limitations of her position is different from leaving because remaining has become unbearable evidence that she is not valued. Restoring winning streak means requiring another favorable result before we can feel secure again. Restoring participation means becoming capable of meeting the next moment clearly before the result changes. The next success can genuinely bring relief, but relief and freedom are not necessarily the same thing. A favorable result often gives us more than just pleasure. It seems to confirm I am capable, I am still valued, I have chosen correctly, I have not fallen behind, I still have a place here, I am permitted to continue. When achievement begins carrying this weight, success becomes more than just an outcome. It becomes evidence of belonging. That's why failure can feel larger than the event itself. We are not only trying to recover the promotion or the recognition or the opportunity, we are also trying to recover our confidence, our place amongst others, and that feeling that we are still entitled to continue. Sometimes beneath the desire to improve, another question is being asked: do I still belong here? This brings us to a different way of understanding independence. We often imagine that independent people have overcome the need to belong. They appear to make their own decisions, move in a different direction, and continue without the approval of those around them. So from the outside, it can look like freedom from belonging altogether. But perhaps some people can walk alone precisely because belonging is not something that they have to continually obtain from the latest response around them. Conditional belonging says, I belong when I'm accepted. Approval matters, recognition matters, community matters, and there is nothing false about that. The difficulty is when external acceptance is the sole basis upon which a person experiences the right to participate in life. Then the environment must be monitored continuously. Do I have the approval? Am I still useful? Have I fallen behind? Do I still have a place here? I use the phrase prior belonging to describe a belonging that is prior to the latest verdict. It does not mean we need nobody. It does not mean we do not care whether we are accepted. It does not mean rejection will stop hurting. It means acceptance and rejections are not automatically permitted to decide whether we have a place within life itself. My participation is not granted by the latest success. It is not withdrawn by the latest failure either. At its deepest, belonging can not only give us somewhere to remain, but it also gives us the capacity to explore, stand apart, and walk alone. This is why dependence upon the crowd can take more than one form. A conformist may say, I will move with the crowd because I do not want to lose my place. And there is nothing inherently wrong about agreement. The difficulty begins when agreement no longer is freely considered. A person may choose to suppress what they see or remain silent about what they question because separation threatens their belonging. But dependence upon the crowd can also appear as rebellion. The rebel may say, I need to walk or move in the opposite direction to the crowd to preserve my identity. Agreement may begin to feel like surrender. The conformist need crowds' agreement. The rebel need crowds' disagreement. Both remain organized around the crowd. Grounded independence does not require agreement or opposition in advance. It allows us to listen, consider, agree, disagree, or remain without requiring the crowd's response to establish who we are. A person can be influenced without becoming absorbed. A person can change their mind without experiencing it as a collapse of identity. Freedom is not found by walking in the opposite direction. It is found when the crowd is no longer the reference point from which we locate ourselves. So if deeper recovery does not require another victory, then what does it begin with? Recovery begins by noticing what happened and what is being constructed around it. This failed, and I'm beginning to make this failure responsible for defining my worth, my direction, and my future. The disappointment remains, but the event, the feeling, and the identity forming around it can now be seen as related without being treated as identical. Attention can then return from imagined consequences to what is actually present. The body, the breath, the senses, the resources that are available, the immediate conditions. This return to sensing is not a way to forcing calm. It restores the contact with reality before anticipation completes the story. What is known, what is imagined, and what requires attention now. The future may still be uncertain. The person may still feel unsettled. Nothing may yet be resolved. But safety is also not about convincing ourselves that everything will work out. It is the growing capacity to remain present when that assurance is unavailable. Can I remain with myself before or until the next success arrives? Can this situation remain unfinished without my urgently producing a result that restores my confidence? From here, the next action no longer has to repair identity. It can belong to the reality of the moment. Perhaps a conversation may be needed, or perhaps the direction needs to be changed, or maybe there is something to learn from this, or maybe a pause is required, or maybe the appropriate action is to continue, but without the guarantee that continuing will be rewarded. The person is not outside life waiting for a favorable result to permit them to return. Failure is happening within participation. Rejection is happening within participation. Uncertainty happens within participation. Participation returns before certainty does. This brings us to the uncomfortable space between the result that has already happened and the result that has not yet arrived. Michelle may still decide to leave the shop. The new manager remains in place, promotion has not been reversed, and the employees may never recognize her contributions. Nothing needs to be prematurely resolved. There is a space between the old result that's already happened and the new result that has not yet arrived. I call this emptiness. Emptiness is the unconfirmed interval in which the old result is no longer defining the next moment, but the new result has not yet arrived to provide reassurance. It is not passivity. It is not refusal to act. It is a space from which action arises without being compelled to restore a threatened identity. The rejection may still stand and the new direction may not yet be visible, but the person is no longer waiting outside life for approval, for recognition, for success to permit their return. Recovery does not necessarily mean removal of failure. It is a restoration of our capacity to participate while failure remains part of the present reality. Perhaps this is the belonging that lets us walk alone, not the certainty that we'll be approved of, but the recognition that approval does not grant us our first place in life, and rejection does not remove it. If this teaching has helped you recognize something in your own experience, you can receive the next Human Nature essay and teaching by email. You will find the link below this video.